Hello, everyone. It is the first of the month, so I'm going to talk about the books that I read in July. I'm organizing them from first books finished to last books finished, so this is a little challenging because obviously I remember the books that I finished more recently better than the books that I finished less recently. So, one of the first books I read in July was Money, Lies, and God. I really enjoyed this book. Would highly recommend it. I don't want to get too political here, but this is really just talking about how wealthy religious organizations are working to overturn democracy and promote authoritarianism, and how their supporters, despite what they actually believe or need in their lives, are just wholeheartedly supporting these interests, kind of blindly. So I really enjoyed this book. Again, I don't want to get too political talking about it. If you are interested in this subject about what's happening in this country and the rise of authoritarianism, this is a book to read. I also really enjoyed How America Works and Why It Doesn't by William Cooper. Nothing too groundbreaking in this book. This is a nice overview of how the Constitution works, how our political systems work, and how tribalism and social media is kind of destroying all that and turning people, again, to go against their own interests and make bad political decisions. The first fiction book I finished was Can You Keep a Secret by Sophie Kinsella. And this is the author of the Shopaholic series, which I love. But this has nothing to do with the Shopaholic series. This is a standalone book about a woman who meets a man on a plane. I guess she doesn't really meet him. She sits next to him on a plane, and then she thinks the plane is going to crash, so she spills all her secrets. But then he turns out to be her boss. And the problem I had with this book is that everybody was really mean and cruel in this universe, like everyone, including her. And except for the man, I guess the man was nice, but he was weird and he kept a lot of secrets himself. I did not like this book. I did not enjoy it at all. I mostly kept reading it because I was fascinated by how much I did not like this book. Everybody was both extremely stupid and extremely mean, and I didn't like it. There's really no point to this book. It was just kind of, I don't know. Well, I finished it, but I'm definitely not going to keep it. I read Foster by Claire Keegan. This is my first Claire Keegan book that I read this month, or of the three Claire Keegan books I read, and I did not love this at all. I was actually kind of bored by it. There was one point where I teared up because I got emotional, but it passed really quickly. It's about a little girl who is in a large family, and she is sent off to live with another family while her mother gives birth, and she sees the difference between her family and their family, and she's treated very well by the new family, but then she goes back to her original family. I feel like this is a children's book. I really got a sense that it was written for children, so I'm going to hold on to this and read this with my daughter, who she actually picked up this book while I was reading it and started reading it, and she really enjoyed it. So I'm going to see if she likes this one. This might be like exactly what she enjoys. So I'm going to hold on to that. So Late in the Day, I actually loved this book. This book was great. This is three short stories about misogyny and how men view women, how women view men. I found it fascinating. I actually did read one of the stories before, and it was called Antarctica, and it was in her Antarctica collection, which I read last year, and it was my favorite stories in there. And I thought all three of these stories were really interesting, and this is definitely a keeper for me. This is a really good, very, the idea of gender relations and misogyny is complicated. It's not always what you think, and this one does a really good job of using these three stories to kind of open your eyes and change the way you think about things. So I enjoyed that book. I also read In the Distance by Herman Diaz. I read his other book, Trust, last year, and I absolutely loved it. This book was very different from Trust. I would say this is like a Western, where it's a immigrant from, I want to say Sweden, who gets separated from his brother, and then he ends up in California. And this is a long time ago. What is the year? I don't remember the year, but it says back in the days of cowboys. And it's a journey, and he meets a lot of very interesting characters, from whom he learns various he learns a lot of science. He learns about revenge. He meets a scam artists, and he kind of becomes the person that he is through these interactions. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought this was great. It was a bit gritty and disturbing and violent, but it didn't bother me so much because of the type of book it was. So I enjoyed this, even though it was nothing like Trust, which, I love Trust more, but this one was great as well. So I'm glad I read that. I reread Chemistry by Wika Wang. Am I saying that her name right? Waiki. I've read this book before, and I actually loved it even more this time. This book was very, very funny. And it was about a woman basically having a breakdown, and it's all in her head. And she's a PhD chemistry student, and she is having a lot of trouble. And it's just the entire book is a stream of her having her breakdown. And, talking about childhood trauma and the immigrant experience. And I really enjoyed this book. And it was also very, very, very funny, but in a weird way, but in a good way. So I'm glad I reread that again. I actually love this book more the second time. I also finished Gone Girl, and I liked this book, but I don't think I'm going to read it again. I think this is a one and done. It was a bit long. What I really liked about Sharp Objects is it's a lot shorter and to the point. This one, I felt like she spent way too much time in every setting, in every experience. I did have a hard time, the beginning did go on for a really long time, but I like what she did. I thought this book definitely affected me. I really enjoyed the back and forth reflection of the couple on their relationship, and also the mental health problems that the wife had. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm glad I read this book. This is a this author does humans well. She explains how humans work really well, and I like that about her work. I finished Women by Chloe Cadwell, and this is a book I got from the author. I did not like this book. It's a very short little novella about two women who end up in a relationship, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the relationship. It felt really immature. It felt like both women, I don't know, for 40-year-old women who are, living their lives, I felt like these women were extremely immature, and I just could not relate to them and their behavior and the decisions that they made. It was very baffling. They were acting like teenagers. It was just not a very healthy relationship, and it was really strange. I just don't understand the appeal of this book. It was definitely not for me. Maybe I'm just too conservative in terms of relationships and, how to treat people. And because I think the problem that I had was it wasn't a fair, there was active cheating, and none of that was really addressed. The both women were extremely selfish in the decisions they made. So I don't know. This book was not for me. I also finished Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This one I did not really care for either. I'm going to hold on to it again and read it again because just based on how much I loved So Late in the Day and how much that affected me. So I'm going to try this one again. Maybe I'll read this with my kids. I don't know. Claire Keegan has a very simple way of writing. It's very innocent, I think. And I do feel like I'm reading a children's book at times. And this one's about a man in a town who does kind things. That's all I can really say. Sorrow and Bliss. I really enjoyed this book. I love this book, actually. This book was amazing. I am an adult who was diagnosed later in life. And this book, this is what that's about. It's a woman who has mental health problems. She has a breakdown, and then later she has to go and get diagnosed, and then she has to get treatment for her condition. And the treatment is the mental health that she's going through. The disorder is not named in this book intentionally to make it more accessible, but it kind of hints that it's bipolar disorder just based on the title, Sorrow and Bliss. I don't have bipolar disorder, but I could really relate to the experience that this woman has. about really not understanding herself, not understanding what's wrong. Why is life so difficult for her? Why is it so much easier for everybody else? This book it really does a good job of that and kind of helping people heal after an adult diagnosis. So I thought this was great. I would definitely hold on to that and read it again. I also ended up picking up Candide, and I blew through this book in one sitting. It was ridiculous. This is not at all what I thought it was going to be. This book is extremely silly and funny, but it was also extremely disturbing. And I'm glad I read it. I definitely enjoyed reading it, but I don't think I want to hold on to it just because I don't think I ever want to read it again. But it's definitely very different from what I thought. It's just this nonstop trauma happening to these people, just nonstop trauma. But it's like funny. I don't know. It's silly, very silly book. Did not think it was going to be silly. I thought it was going to be some philosophical, complicated thing. The last book that I finished was Revolutionary Characters, and I've been struggling with this book for months now by Gordon Wood, probably years because I've had this book forever. I did not enjoy this book. This book was kind of oddly written. I read another book by Gordon Wood about Benjamin Franklin that I really enjoyed. This one I had a hard time with. I'm probably going to hold on to it to reread it. It's really talking about the different founders, and I love reading about Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. So I really enjoyed those chapters. I really enjoyed reading about George Washington, John Adams. So there were a couple that I kind of it wasn't as interesting to me. But I do want to reread this book because I feel like I have to be smarter to really appreciate this. And I think I would enjoy I would enjoy this book again if I slowed down a bit and just like focused a little more. Because it is fascinating. It's really talking about each of these people and their personalities and what they put into their role, like what specifically of themselves that they put into the role that they had in creating our revolution. Creating our Constitution and participating in the revolution. Anyway, so that is the last book I finished. I finished that one yesterday. So thank you for watching, and we'll see what August brings.